everyone, welcome to this video. My name is T. If you're new here, I really do hope everyone's day is going well. So, how have you been? I'm nervous. No sir, can't lie, I'm nervous because enough of y'all been asking, what have you been? And honestly, any fucking bit. No, I'm kidding. Truthfully, it was a plan to make a swift return after my last video, which is why I started it out all cocky, like, did you miss me? I know you did. Go fast. I dead thought that would be the last time I was gonna pull some shit like that, but turns out it wasn't for a number of reasons, and surprise, surprise, I made a video about why I haven't been making videos. And it's on Patreon, extended and uncensored. Baby, we talking about everything from lack of motivation to lack of creative confidence, creative integrity, a little mental health struggles, yeah? So if that interests you and you've been curious about my whereabouts, Patreon. And you know what else is on Patreon? I heard that a couple weeks ago, a gay rapper, released a music video where he went to hell. And then there was an outpour of requests for my analysis, so I made one, but it was so controversial and opinionated that I was too nervous to make it public on YouTube. It's just what I heard. No, but seriously, my full analysis of the Montressa music video is up on Patreon right now. I went through it play by play and explored the potential symbolism within, while also sharing my thoughts on the intersections of sexuality, fear, and religious indoctrination. It's a vibe. Patreon.com/Noir. I will see you there. Okay, on to today's shindig. The girls are fighting. Like, they're really fighting.
Just handle it and dot in his ass. With one hand held the shirt, with the other then switched hands, and with the walling on his ass, whopping his shoe, put the wailing on his motherfucking ass.
So what's going on? Well, Coi Leray, aka Big Prr, is an upcoming rapper who has made a name for herself, not just for her unique sound and her pretty face. Love that face, come on cheekbones. But because she, like many female rappers, has adopted the modern marketing technique of throwing that ass. Shaking that ass. But the difference between Coi and just about every other modern female rapper is she's not curvy. So people have been making fun of her. They've been making fun of her for dancing sexily but not having the body that matches the hypersexual image of contemporary beauty standards. Psych? You thought I was about to get demonetized? Go on TikTok if you really want to watch it. 10/10, would highly recommend. Now, of course, when she gets made fun of, people jump to her defense because that's body shaming. But the problem is, some people fail to understand that more than one thing can be true at once. For this reason, they struggle to have discourse. Let me stop pointing my finger. We struggle to have discourse about biases without making it competitive. It couldn't just be, this is skinny shaming, and that's wrong because Coi is a human being and a grown-ass woman, and she should be allowed to embody her version of sexiness without hate. No, couldn't just be that. It had to be, why is it okay to make fun of Coi, but not Lizzo? You see how Lizzo be minding her own motherfucking business. At the time of this recording, well, at the time that I wrote this, who knows when this is gonna go up, Lizzo was in Vegas celebrating her birthday with literal balloons tied to her braids. And Chris Evans, y'all remember Christopher Jamal, right? In her DMs, she's just living without any regard to Coi Leray's ass cheeks, I promise. Yet somehow she's always roped into these conversations, likely because Lizzo is seen as the figurehead for fat confidence and overall body positivity. So here we are, yet again, having the skinny shaming versus fat phobia debate, and honestly, we have collectively gone little to no f***ing where with it. But have no fear, I came with receipts and insight and guest appearances, and hopefully today's video is conducive to the conversation because I want to explore and validate the nuances of both skinny shaming and fat phobia. I of course want to promote understanding the negativity and harm in both, but ultimately highlight the Fendi fucking fact that the two are not the same. Not even close. Let's start with the history of the body positivity movement. Obviously, people have been fighting against fat oppression since the beginning of fat oppression, so it's a bit difficult to pinpoint the exact person who started the movement, but based on what I could find, articles linked below. Quick fast, we have Steve Post, a Jewish American radio presenter who hosted a fat-in Central Park in 1967. There, a group of about 500 people came together to celebrate their bodies and stand in solidarity against diet programs and overall anti-fat bias. This inspired Bill Fabry, who is an engineer who was sick and tired of the way his fat wife Joyce was treated in society, so he eventually formed the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance. On the West Coast, we had radical feminists spearheading the fat liberation movement and writing the now iconic Fat Manifesto. In the South, we had women like Margaret K. Bass, who wrote about growing up in the segregated South and the intersections of racism, anti-fat bias, and the self-hatred that formed as a result. In addition to Miss Bass, we had other women such as Johnny Tillman, who, although a poverty activist, also used her platform to emphasize the further dehumanization she faced for being Black, a woman, poor, and fat in America. Eventually, we make her... All right. Eventually... All right, my voice is... I don't know what's going on. We ain't losing it. This the moneymaker. Eventually, we make our way to 2013 and we have model Tess Holliday, who created hashtag #FYourBeautyStandards, which is now one of the most notable origins of the more radical and unapologetic sectors of the body positivity movement we are familiar with today. And I want to emphasize that while Tess is one of the more popular figures in the modern body positivity movement, that could not have been done without the help of less well-known fat people of color and queer identities who helped blaze the trail for her. Nonetheless, as you can see, the body positivity movement was started by and for fat people. But fat people were still kind enough to let us, thinner people, into the movement because, I mean, everybody deserves a piece of the self-love pie, and this is a movement about inclusion, so they gotta practice what they preach. But let me be clear, the contemporary body positivity movement was not only extended to skinny people, but also to people with disabilities, people with skin conditions, people whose weight fluctuates, people with eating disorders, etc. A little bit of everybody, and skinny people. But guess who hijacked it? Guess who took it? And instead of using the privilege we have for possessing more socially acceptable bodies to create more visibility for others, we used our already palatable appearance to put emphasis on our mistreatment, turning the spotlight back on us, further marginalizing those who created this space for us to begin with. A great recent example of this is, remember that trend on TikTok that was like, bodies that look like this also look like this? Do y'all remember that stupid ass trend? That was started, it wasn't stupid initially, it was started to realistically show bigger and fuller bodies in relaxed positions, but it eventually turned into skinny girls putting themselves in these uncomfortable, distorted ass positions to emphasize their roles or protrude their cellulite. They looked very silly doing it, and it distracted from the real purpose of the trend. This is very exemplary of the counterproductivity that happens when people fail to understand or try to blur the lines between bias and oppression. So let's talk about the mistreatment and the disrespect that happens in the spaces of skinny shaming, because it's a real thing. And this I can speak on from personal experience. You don't need no articles for this one. I got this. You ready? I'm a skinny woman who has been skinny my entire adult life. Really my entire life, but let's just focus on my adult life. Yeah, skinny shaming is a real thing. Let me fucking tell you. It's something I've been a victim of, which has led to it being a huge source of self-loathing in the past. So I know all about being bullied for it. I know about the snarky remarks, forcing yourself to finish a meal in public, even when you feel sick to your stomach just because you don't want to be falsely accused of having an eating disorder. I know all about that pit in your stomach you get when you have a busy day, so you miss a meal, and you're like, oh shit, what if I lose a pound? And then I'll be 1 pound less of a woman. And I know about these fears being confirmed because I fluctuate between the same 15 pounds every single year, and I get to see the drastic difference in the way I'm treated, mostly by men, when I'm 15 pounds heavier in my ass. Yep, when I'm 15 pounds heavier in my ass versus when I'm not. It's quite astonishing. And the Academy Award goes too, you know what I mean? Thankfully, I'm in a much better space, so those insecurities aren't active anymore. I would say that they lie dormant deep down, but they're not dead. I've already done a video on body neutrality, so y'all have heard me say this before, but even though I've planted a love for my body so deep that it expands beyond how I feel about it on a day-to-day basis, I am not that far removed from what those insecurities feel like. Also, if you want to save space to hear people talk about body dysmorphia, even in skinny people, Tariq Ali uploaded an amazing video a couple weeks ago. Child, when I say they ain't had no business telling my business like that. So if you're trying to be all up in my business, go watch that gem of a video. But yeah, it's tough, and I could not in good faith try to sit here and invalidate those experiences or those adjacent to it. But we, as thinner people who want this shit to end, need to understand that while it is wrong, yes, do you hear me validating it? Yes, it is wrong. The existence of our bodies in this size still come with privilege. And in order to make any changes to the landscape of body shaming as a whole, we first need to acknowledge that privilege. There's a point at which the mistreatment we go through stops, and on the other side of that is oppression. Oppression that skinny bodies do not have to withstand. Fatphobia includes all of what we go through, respectively, along with systemic mistreatment, socially, corporately, medically. How do you define fatphobia?
I define fatphobia as kind of the systemic ways in which like fat bodies are judged or discriminated against.
The systemic devaluation of fat people and fat bodies.
The way in which people interact with fat or obese people, whatever term you use, and the way that they either view us as people or not people in certain ways.
Literally the roots of the word, fat phobia. People are afraid of fat. To me, that most obviously means that fat phobia, it's built into the world, and the world is not built for me and my people.
Not necessarily how like individual people see fat people, but how society as a whole sees fat people.
Is so interesting to me. As soon as you said the part about the fashion sense, I thought it's like two scenes flashed in my mind. That scene in Euphoria where Kat finally gains her confidence and she's like strutting through the mall with the corset and stuff.
I spent my whole life afraid people were gonna find out that I was fat. But honestly, who gives a shit? There's nothing more powerful than a fat girl who doesn't give a fuck. You should see me in the crowd. Considering all they did was take off her glasses, put on lipstick, and give her a corset, and suddenly she became more palatable. I didn't even realize like that my mind did that.
Yeah.
And that's my own bias that I need to check. Going back to what you were saying about the few tropes in media, do you have any specific examples that you can think of?
Everybody was like, you gotta watch Bebe's Kids, you gotta watch it. There were like two women who kept coming up, and one of them was darker skinned and fat. And that was just the gag. Like everybody kept being like, oh, she's so nasty, she's so gross, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, this is where it starts.
Media conditioned me from a young age to think like, if you're fat, that's your personality type. I loved the movie Sleepover growing up, and there's like the token fat girl in that movie. And her whole personality type is that she likes to eat and she wants to find a boy, and the boy that she meets is also chubby, and they both like brownies. So they're meant to love each other, and that's it. And I saw that when I was like 8, and I conditioned that. And I was like, wow, it's so nice to see a girl like me in a movie, not thinking like her entire personality was that she liked to eat. I was constantly trying to be more than that.
Another thing I've been called is precious, which is really saddening to me because her story is about so much more than her weight. They don't think about the scene where, her mother talks about, the things that she did to her. They think about the scene where she steals a bucket of chicken and trips while she's running away. Because it's not about her trauma, it's about her weight.
Have you ever had any instances in the medical field where you have been denied care or have been even gaslit when you feel like you have a problem, or the doctor has blamed an issue on your weight when you know good and well it has nothing to do with it?
Well, I will say, if we're talking about mental health professionals, there is one in particular about a former therapist I had in high school that stayed on my weight all the time. I was junior year in high school. By this point, I had lost maybe 20 pounds. So I was feeling snatched. And even when I would have therapy with her, she would talk about like, so, Justin, I hear that you go to the vending machine at the end of the day. Why are you doing that? And I'm like, well, I have my nieces and nephews and I bring them home a snack every day. Or I have like chips for myself on the bus ride. Yeah, but how is that helping you? And things like that. To the point where, of course, like I said, I have OCD, I have depression and things like that she would bypass to discuss my body and my relationship with food. Why are you so deep in on what my body looks like? Don't you think I do that enough?
Yeah.
Don't you think I worry about that enough? And mind you, before then, I didn't have an eating disorder. I wasn't like binging and purging at that time. That came later, but I still think about that a lot. That like, you're my therapist, you're supposed to work with me on these things or help me feel better or find positive ways to channel these things, but you are literally making me feel like crap.
Yeah, and it really just speaks volumes to how deeply ingrained anti-fat bias and fat phobia is in people who are supposed to be in some of the most ethical fields. It's almost as if she was trying to fulfill her own personal agenda instead of helping her patient.
Yeah. It didn't feel like she was taking a separation as a professional to help a child in need. It felt like she was in a way shaming me for something that she couldn't shame her kid about. Or she was shaming me for a way that she couldn't shame somebody in her life about because she had to worry about that. And of course, I'm an okay target.
I got diagnosed in high school with chronic cluster migraines. So I'll get these like migraines and it's like the only thing I can do is be in a dark room, like no sound, nothing, or it feels like my head is gonna like explode. So I went to a doctor, my mom took me, and the first thing out of her mouth is, well, you are overweight. So I got a second opinion. I was taking birth control at the time. It turns out the thing that was causing the migraines was the birth control that I was taking, because the estrogen levels, when it changed the estrogen levels, that's what made me have migraines. For me, losing weight wouldn't have changed the migraines because I would still be taking that birth control, and that birth control was what was causing it.
When you're just existing and not hating yourself for it, I don't think that equates to confidence. I think that's just being a person. So do you think the word confidence has a different connotation for fat people than it does for anyone else?
Almost definitely. I think it's like that. I think that hyper focus that we have on weight, because in social media, right? Like if a thin person were to again post a picture in like a short dress or a crop top, no one in the comments would be like, you're so confident. While that just seems to be a reoccurring theme in like fat women's like photos. Because again, it goes back into that implication of like, if I had a body like yours, I don't know if I could feel, good enough to wear that.
I know especially if you go on to any like fat person's Instagram who's not like actively trying to lose weight, even if they're not like a fat advocate, just their existence, being online and not being like ashamed of themselves, there will be like so many comments of people who are just like, there only to shame them, only to tell them like, you're gonna die in a year or so. And there's so many like really creative, horrible comments that like people really put a lot of time into like health trolling people. And yeah, I think it's very accepted, and like people, if a fat person posts something, like especially if they're in a bikini or something like that, people will say like, yeah, well, I'm all for body positivity, but like this is too much. Like I'm for body positivity if you have like rules when you sit down, but like not when you stand up.
And it's a layered oppression because people know that it exists and they know it's wrong, but they don't intervene because they feel it's for the best. This is why there are people who are still in my comments to this day willing to die on the hill that even though they've called Lizzo every animal in the book, even though she strikes so much anger in their heart for simply existing in her skin without any regard to their comfort or approval, that's not a bias, that's not a phobia, that's not bigotry. It's just that they're really bothered by the existence of fat people, and they gotta let somebody know. And sometimes that comes in the form of retweeting dehumanizing memes. Sometimes that means they can't afford to speak up even when they see textbook mistreatment and bullying online or in public. They know these things are wrong and they would speak up in any other instance, but when it comes to fat people, they just gotta make the exception. But it's not a phobia.
Everybody say it with me now, okay? Accountability feels like an attack when you don't realize the damage your actions have on other people. One more time.
I'll give you my theory. There's still this long-held belief, a promoted and encouraged long-held belief, that fat people only exist by way of error and mistake. Error and mistake that's up to us as non-fat people to correct. And that gives them a pass to be cruel or complicit to cruelty against them. If this sounds familiar, I fucks with you. I fucks with you so fucking hard. Normalizing something does not mean promoting it. It means minding your business if it exists and it's not harming you. It means not being terrible if it exists and it's not harming you. It's very easy, and I know people are capable of it because that's the same thing y'all do and have been doing for skinny propaganda. You want to talk about promoting unhealthiness? We could never promote fatness on the same level that people propagandize skinniness. Ever. The way skinny culture and diet culture have been propagandized, we have mentally attributed it to health, wealth, success, elitism, beauty, youth. We've already had the conversation in that same video, actually, about laxative teas and waist trainers and how they're marketed. But we don't really talk about the psychological bullshit behind it. All of this take charge of your life bullshit. All of that detox and cleanse bullshit, as if the human body is automatically or naturally dirty if it's not actively trying to achieve or maintain skinniness. What? It truly is propaganda. And again, I'm not just talking about the Instagram ads. I'm talking about how almost every item in the grocery store has a non-fat or low-fat option. I'm talking about how we've seen firsthand how products like Olestra and Snackwell cookies have had people damn near dropping dead. But when a similar product comes back on the market with those same ingredients, people are lined up. People are still ready to put their full trust in it because it is completely normal to gamble with your health in the pursuit of skinniness. I'm talking about the fact that Beyonce, and by the way, all of the examples I'm using, I got from the Maintenance Phase podcast. I'm telling y'all, it's so good, you need to check it out. But I'm talking about the fact that Beyonce in 2006, a long time ago, don't come for my sister, lost a wild amount of weight for her role in Dreamgirls. Went on Oprah, people asked how she did it, and she said she did the master cleanse, which is basically like where you don't eat for 10 fucking days, and instead you drink this lemonade, pepper, cayenne. And before you knew it, every celebrity was trying it. It was on the cover of every magazine. It had its own segment on one of, if not the most watched daytime talk show in the United States. But Lizzo shaking her ass on Instagram is promoting an unhealthy lifestyle. The two are not the same. The two are not the motherfucking same. The two are not the same. In this video, I didn't bother to dedicate an entire portion to explaining that body weight is meant to vary from person to person, and that genetics, neurology, and culture all play a role. It's not just about height and gender. Trust me, I could have took it there. You know I could have. Because I've listened to enough podcasts, there are enough resources and free essays written by doctors and neuroscientists that explain all of the ways fat bodies can naturally and healthily or unhealthily exist. But why would I do that? And if you were expecting that, why do you need it? There is not a fat person on this earth who owes you an explanation or an apology for their existence. So you see, this is not a skinny versus fat issue, because they are not in the same league. This is a beauty standards issue. This is a societal pressures issue, a shame-based society issue. This is a bigoted issue. And in order to combat that, which affects all of us, we cannot ignore the different levels of severity that different groups face. Empathy is required from all sides, even when the pioneers of the problem start complaining. Let's take a break. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsor. Just kidding, this video is not sponsored by anyone. A couple weeks ago, Khloe Kardashian went on an Instagram rant after an unflattering picture of her leaked on the internet. Big blood clot air quotes around unflattering, because in the picture, which I can't post because I heard she got her legal team on it and cannot bother. But in that picture, I think she looks great. She's giving a cute, fresh face. She's doing a corny little pose with the peace sign up. The sun is shining, the scenery is beautiful, her bikini's cute. She looks happy. I mean, the picture was taken by her grandmother, for crying out loud. She looks happy. But of course, I don't want to invalidate her feelings about it. It is her in the picture, so how she feels is valid. That's just how I feel. Anyway, she felt like that picture did not capture her in the best light. And when the internet was like, maybe you're wildin', maybe. She took to Instagram to sound off about how difficult it is to constantly adhere to modern beauty standards and how harmful of an expectation it is for her to be perfect all the time. And then the internet turned on her and it was like, hold up. I know the architect is not complaining about the building. And the big question surrounding this is, should we even feel bad for her? Especially considering this is a monster she and her family helped create. This is their Frankenstein that has been terrorizing us for so many years. And now this Frankenstein finally turned around and bit one of their heads off. Should we even feel bad? Yes. The short answer is yes. I mean, I can't tell you what to do, but I feel bad for her. I understand that she played a huge role, a pivotal role in popularizing these unattainable beauty standards, and she profits off of the self-consciousness that she created by constantly marketing the laxative teas and the weight loss shakes and the waist trainers that got so many of y'all in a chokehold. Oh my goodness. When I dragged waist trainers in my Please Let Me Be a Basic Bitch in Peace video, so many of y'all took that as a personal attack.
Okay, and what do you want me to do about that?
If you paid attention, you would know that the problem is not with the user. You're a victim. We all are. Nonetheless, I refuse to pacify you on this one. I do not like them shits. I don't support them and I never will. Onward we move. So Khloe, I feel for her. I do. Even though people have accused her of being disingenuous, and they have good reason to, especially considering immediately after she posted that, she went on Instagram Live to show that her body is actually good. Whatever that means. Which leads me to believe that her issue wasn't really with the world constantly expecting bodily perfection from her, but the fact that for a split second she couldn't give it to them and she felt embarrassed. To me, that little after performance, it screamed shame. It screamed, hold on, let me explain. And I feel what she should have done, and what more celebrities who go through this should start doing, is what Jessica Simpson did in the 2000s. Do y'all remember the tabloids' fixation with Jessica Simpson's weight fluctuation? When I say peak weirdo behavior, I can't, another video. So in her memoir, Jessica wrote that there was a time when she was like a size 4 or maybe a 6 or something, so petite. But the way the paparazzi was catching her was making her look much bigger than she actually was. And she could have easily released her own set of photos to show like, no, that's not how I look. I'm actually this size. But because she knew what it was like to be fat shamed, she didn't want to make apologies or excuses for her body like fat women are always expected to do. And that was her little way of contributing to a more size inclusive pop culture. I love that. Child, that book was juicy. Listen, I didn't read it. I listened to the You're Wrong About podcast and they did a deep dive on it, dedicated like 4 episodes to it. Child. I'm talking the Britney Spearses, you know, the Justin Timberlakes, I think maybe a couple Christina Aguileras, a little Ryan Goslings, the Nick Lachey's, the emotionally cheating on your husband. My mouth is salivating just thinking about it. It was juicy. So for Khloe, it is a little tacky that she tried to use the let's turn over a new leaf of self-acceptance entryway if she didn't really mean it. Nonetheless, I can still offer her empathy for the fact that the pressure to be perfect weighs so heavy on her that she brought out her legal team. She was having people's Twitter accounts suspended, allegedly, over a picture where she didn't even look bad. She just looked regular. But if she is genuinely interested in eradicating body shaming, she too needs to recognize her privilege and her perpetuation in all of this. And people like her because I know her body type is, do they call it slim thick? Yeah. People with that body type, they may think this conversation doesn't concern them, but it does. Y'all too benefit from skinny privilege, not for the fact that you're skinny, but because you're not perceived as fat. So what we finna do? We're gonna stop apologizing for our bodies. Ugh, that is so 2020. And I mean, we're gonna stop with comparative activism. We're gonna stop being oblivious to our obvious privilege, especially in conversations where we're trying to be inclusive and there are people with different severities of mistreatment. We're gonna unlearn a couple things and be better allies. So after we hold ourselves accountable, we're gonna listen. And if we have platforms, we're gonna use that to amplify the voices of those who need to be heard. I'll kick it off. How can non-fat people, thin people, be better allies to the fat community as we try to fight against fat oppression?
Like, stop trying to fix people.
First and foremost, I think if someone who's close to you makes a statement about like somebody else, whether they heard them or not, like just checking them and being like, yo, that's not cool. And even online, like in digital spaces too, because I think that's where fat phobia runs rampant, because people will get bold behind a keyboard.
Just being mindful of the sensitivity in these situations. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, if somebody seems nervous about getting on a roller coaster ride, or they openly say, oh, I don't know if I'm a fit, just be like, hey, do you want to try? Do you want to go do something else? Or stand up for us in moments where we might be feeling insecure. I always say a compliment goes a long way. So, you know, it helps if you see me visibly feeling uncomfortable or bad in my body, you know, maybe compliment me. Mm-hmm. Help me take my mind off of this aspect and worry about this aspect, you know, where I'm feeling real good in the moment. Right. You know.
On top of that type of listening, I'm also listening to, of course, Maintenance Phase podcast. She's All Fat podcast. I really like that podcast. It's by fat women for fat women. They be kikiing on there. Familiarize ourselves with more fat people than Lizzo. Oh my gosh, I cannot stress this enough. Familiarize yourself with more fat people than Lizzo. Familiarize yourself with more fat bodies than those that are shaped like hourglasses. We're not gonna be shocked when fat people don't hate themselves or they're not in an active pursuit of skinniness. Wow. Thank you all so much for watching this video, especially if you made it all the way to the end. And of course, a huge thank you to the participants in this video, Montressa, Rachel, Mikey, Justin, and Alana. Your insight and honesty made this video so much better, so thank you. Be sure to leave your thoughts and your comments down below. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, however you're feeling today, and I'll catch you in the next video. Should I give a hint as to what the next video is gonna be? If I do that, then I'll be holding myself accountable. But then again, the last time I did that, I ain't come back for like 3 weeks. Send me good vibes and I'll be back very soon. Here's the hint. Bye.